Farbrengen that we started, and we're not going to be able to finish the Farbrengen today. So I just want to go over some of the points that mentions at this same Farbrengen. Every week, the yeshiva students put out discussions about the Rebbe's talks, and they were discussing the bracha of Shechiyanu. When a Jewish girl begins to light Shabbos candles, the Rebbe said that she should say Shechiyanu. And on the other hand, when a Jewish boy begins to put on film for the first time, he does not say Shechiyanu. So the question is, why is there a difference between Shechiyanu for a boy putting on film versus a girl lighting Shabbos candles? And so the answer is like this: Shechiyanu is connected with the mitzvah that brings you joy. So when a boy begins putting on tefillin, when he is obligated to do a mitzvah, those who have the custom to only put on tefillin once the boy turns a mitzvah. So the question is he really happy in such a way that he should be obligated to say Shechiyanu? And it's really an important question because you don't want to say Hashem's name in vain, and especially for a boy who's just become bar mitzvah. So since you can't be certain about how great his joy is, you cannot make a general rule that everyone should say the bracha of Shechiyanu. And even according to the custom that people have to put on tefillin 2 or 3 months before the bar mitzvah, like our custom, since he is so close to the age of bar mitzvah, there is room to be stringent about saying Hashem's name, especially because once he turns bar mitzvah, there's no room to say Shechiyanu because he's already put on tefillin for a few months before. But now he's close to the age of bar mitzvah, he's 2 months before. You do want to educate him about saying Hashem's name, and he's already almost 13. But when we're talking about a small child, a girl, who is just lighting Shabbos candles at the age of 2 years old around, before she's reached the age of education, she hasn't reached the age of 5 or 6. By boys, it's 5 or 6, by girls a little before. So the severity of saying Hashem's name isn't so great, because we're talking about a small little girl, before she reached the age of education. And especially because Tzemach Tzedek says that if you're not sure if you should say Shechiyanu or not, you should be lenient. And on the other hand, there's also no doubt about how happy the girl is when you give her the Shabbos candles to light. As you see clearly, that when you tell a little girl that from now on, she is going to be given her own candlestick in order that she should light Shabbos candles, since she is being considered a big girl, and therefore she's lighting Shabbos candles like her mom, that causes her to have a great joy, especially when she reaches the age of understanding, and she understands that Hashem, you explain to her that Hashem has given her a unique mission to illuminate her home and the whole world. That gives her the greatest joy. And therefore it's appropriate to make the custom that when a girl begins to light Shabbos candles, she should say Shechiyanu, especially now that we are at the end of the time of exile, and the time right before the coming of Mashiach. So there's a need for light, there's a need for blessing, and therefore it's appropriate for a girl to say Shechiyanu the first time she lights Shabbos candles. That's for a little girl. But for those who are stubborn, and they don't want to light their daughter light Shabbos candles until she becomes bas mitzvah. And there's only stubbornness, Rebbe says, doesn't make sense, because although there are all kinds of halachic reasons they're addressing this and reasons of reverence for Hashem, but it's really a matter of stubbornness. And therefore I hope Rebbe says that those who were stubborn in the past, not to let their daughters light Shabbos candles, and not to let their daughters give light to the darkness of the exile, I hope that they change their opinion, and from now on they will allow their daughters to fulfill their desire to light Shabbos candles. It's self-understood. It's very simply that when a Jewish girl wants to light Shabbos candles, it's understood that a Jewish girl wants to light Shabbos candles. As the Gemara says about beauty, the Gemara says that Jewish daughters are beautiful. It's poverty that makes them not look beautiful. So there is a Jewish girl wants to light Shabbos candles, but there's things of the opposite of holiness, which stubbornness or whatever, that prevent them fulfilling their desire. And That's sufficient for now. So when a girl begins lighting Shabbos candles at the age of Bas Mitzvah, she should not say Shechayonu. Just like a boy shouldn't say Shechayonu when he puts on film for the first time. Because at that age, there's already the issue of mentioning Hashem's name, because we're talking about a girl who is obligated to keep mitzvahs. The general idea of Shechayonu and all blessings is, the theme is thanking Hashem, blessing Hashem. So regarding this, it's known the story of the Baal Shem Tov. He used to travel around in various cities, speak to simple people, to women, to children. He wanted them to say Baruch Hashem, which is similar to the idea of a bracha. So there was a question that the yeshiva students had about what was written in one of the books of chassidus of Poland, the Chassidim of Poland, that the Baal Shem Tov was a reincarnation of Rav Sadia Gaon. And the Rebbe, already in the previous Farbrengen, said that it's not likely that is correct, because Baal Shem Tov is very unique and not like Rav Sadia Gaon. And they asked, it says in a book called Shivcha Baal Shem Tov, that the Baal Shem Tov said about himself that he is a reincarnation of Rav Sadia Gaon. So first of all, not all the details mentioned in this book of Shivcha Baal Shem Tov are so accurate, although we're talking about true righteous tzaddikim, not all the details are accurate. And we see also that in Chassidic discourses, that book isn't used as a source. But to explain the actual idea of the identity of the Baal Shem Tov, it says in Svarim, in Sefer Seder Chodesh, that the soul of Baal Shem Tov is the soul of Chanoch. And there are those who say that his soul was the soul of David and the spirit of Shlomo. It's also known that Baal Shem Tov wanted to meet Or HaChaim, and if they could meet together, then Mashiach would have come. And therefore it says that one of them was the spirit of David, one of them was the soul of David. It also says in the letter of the Baal Shem Tov to his brother-in-law that the soul of Baal Shem Tov was a Jew who passed away in Tzvas in Shin Lamed Gimel. So the explanation of the general idea is as follows. How many people do you need? 2 people? Okay. Okay. So it's the idea of reincarnation, there are 2 ways of reincarnation. One concept of reincarnation is Amen. 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 Okay, so there are 2 kinds of reincarnation. There's one kind of reincarnation that a soul was once in this world before, and now they are returning. And then there is another kind of reincarnation. A soul is returning to the world not as a punishment, chas v'shalom, but to help the soul to accomplish something. That means that when the soul needs to achieve something, in addition to the soul needs to be reincarnated because it has a relationship to a certain kind of achievement that has to be done specifically through it. And in that itself, it's possible the soul is reincarnated for temporary. In other words, it doesn't go in someone's body their whole life, it goes in their body just for a small amount of time. So regarding the Baal Shem Tov, he has a separate role. But there is another part of his identity, besides his main own role, his own identity. Is the relationship to being a reincarnation of Chanoch or reincarnation of David, but that's something else that is a tribute to him and it has a connection to him, but it's not his main role. It's Okay, so it's similar to what it says about Pinchas. Pinchas, it says he was a reincarnation of Eliyahu Navi. How can he be a reincarnation of Eliyahu Navi? Eliyahu Navi was only born later on when there were Jewish kings in Israel, and Pinchas lived in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. And the answer is that there is the soul of Eliyahu Navi as he exists before creation, and there's no connection to how he is beyond, higher than creation. And therefore, you could say Pinchas is that soul that was there before creation. When Pinchas was born, his soul was the soul of Eliyahu Navi. And this answers the question about whether Eliyahu Navi was a Kohen or not. On the one hand, it says he was from the tribe of God. On the other hand, it says he was from he's Pinchas, who was a Kohen. So it's possible you could be born from one tribe, and yet you could have something else that is added to you. So again, there's a reincarnation, that soul needs to be rectified and returns to the world again and is born again. And there is that the soul returns just to do something, to accomplish something. Amen. 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 Okay, so that explains this idea about the Baal Shem Tov being called reincarnation of various tzaddikim. One more point that I've discussed as Farbrengen was the Rashi about bringing sacrifices. Rashi says when a Jew brings a sacrifice to Hashem, Hashem says, "It is a pleasure before me that I have said to do something, and you've done my will." And we only find this specifically about sacrifices. Why by sacrifices, not by other mitzvahs? Amen. 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 Okay. So I guess they're finished. In the more Kaddishes?
I don't know, he kind of flagged me when I was coming in, but I guess he's done.
All right. So why does it say Hashem has special pleasure when we bring a sacrifice? Doesn't Hashem have pleasure from all of our mitzvahs? The answer is, when a Jew does a mitzvah regularly, it doesn't bring a unique pleasure to Hashem, because of course a Jew does a mitzvah. But when a Jew brings a sacrifice, that means the Jew was in a situation that he wasn't in good circumstances. And now he regrets the circumstances he's in. He does tshuva, because that's the simple meaning of why a person brings a korban, even a korban oila. It's about rectification of his situation that he's in. So, and not only does he feel bad, but he puts out his money and he buys an animal, then offers it to Hashem. It's understood that this causes a unique pleasure to Hashem, because he is going out of his what the situation he was in before, and he's returning to Hashem. That causes a unique pleasure to Hashem. The Rebbe then went on to discuss his explanation of his father's teachings about this week's Torah portion, and how that connects to the previous Rebbe, whose leadership begins on the 2nd of Nisan, the day of his father's passing. And practically, the lesson we're supposed to take is as follows. The whole service of Hashem that we're meant to do, as the previous Rebbe said in his last discourse, is Bais Bezalel. Hashem says, when He created, I've come back to my garden. Hashem made the world, His presence was fully manifest here, and through sins, His presence became hidden, and through our mitzvahs, the mitzvahs of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, for 7 generations, God's presence was again brought back to the world of the Mishkan, and now it's our role to bring this Hashem's presence to be manifest again with the coming of Mashiach, that there should be the fulfillment of this verse, I've come back to my garden. So this service of Hashem, making the world home for Hashem, has to be done in a way of tzav. Tzav, the Gemara says, means alacrity. And tzav also means connection. So that you're connected to Hashem, not just to Hashem's words, but connected to Him Himself, to the one who gave, to the one who, not just to Hashem's desire, but to the one who gave us His desire. And that's the meaning of the words in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Zrizin makdim l'mitzvahs. Simple meaning of this is that those who have alacrity do mitzvahs earlier. But it also means, if you have alacrity, you reach a higher place than the mitzvah itself. In other words, the fact that you have alacrity and you want to do a mitzvah and you want to do it fast, that's because you're connected to the one who is giving the commandment, to Hashem Himself. It's beyond the actual mitzvah itself. And because of our love for our fellow Jew, it's understood that we have to cause others also to have alacrity in the service of Hashem. And how do you do this? How do you cause another person to immediately have excitement in the service of Hashem? It's by speaking from the heart, and mainly by being an example about Hashem. That means you're not satisfied just with thoughts. You're not even satisfied just with words coming from your heart, but you show an example how you actually get stuff done. Simply, when a grandfather wants to educate his grandson, that you have to serve Hashem, to learn Torah, to do mitzvahs, and do this with alacrity. And after he talks about this with his grandson, he acts the opposite way. He sits down and reads a newspaper. He sits down and talks on the telephone about things which aren't so important. He talks about things which aren't important, the things which have no practical results. We're not talking about saying things which are forbidden or disgusting, Cashapp. Rather, as Rambam says, you should speak very little because you don't want to run into things which are forbidden to say. We're talking about saying things which are insignificant, which have no value, no importance. So the grandson, hearing this, he's surprised. He just heard from his grandfather how he's supposed to behave, and he sees his grandfather acting differently. And just because the grandson has respect for his grandfather, he just keeps his thoughts to himself, because it's understood what kind of effect this has on the grandson. And so when his grandfather comes to sit down and eat and drink with great desire, after he told his grandson, you have to serve Hashem with such alacrity and such excitement, then he sees his grandfather sit down to eat with such excitement, the grandson doesn't know the intent his grandfather has when he eats. He doesn't know that if he has intent to eat for the sake of Hashem or not. All he knows is what he sees. He sees he's eating. His grandfather's eating and he's drinking and he's hungry and he's thirsty. So it's understood that the first thing that the grandfather needs to do is to be an example for his grandson. And through being an example, he's able to affect his grandson to be the way he's meant to be. This is not only true regarding a grandfather and a grandson, the same is also true regarding a father and a son and a husband and a wife. When a husband makes a big storm about Shabbos, and how Shabbos is so important, when Shabbos comes, he comes home, he opens the buttons of his kapata, buttons of his fatuk, he sits down and he drinks a tea, and he thinks about the things that Hashem has created in the world. On the other hand, when he leaves the Hasidic discourse on the bookshelf, it's understood what kind of influence it has on his wife, which she wants to be in a situation, she wants to be the kosher woman, the Gemara says, who does the will of her husband. You can imagine what the house will look like, including how the husband will look like, and how the children will grow up in such a house when the husband, instead of taking out the Hasidic discourse when he comes home from shul, he just takes out a tea. So to cause pleasure to a Jew is a great thing. And self-understood, it's usher, it's forbidden to cause pain to a Jew. On the contrary, you're supposed to try to cause pleasure to a Jew. So if the Torah says that the poor men of your city, the poor people of your city, have precedence to help them first, and you have to, so therefore you also have to cause, a person may say, okay, I have to cause pleasure to myself. You're not supposed to cause pain to any Jew, so I can't cause pain to myself either. On the other hand, you should have to ask yourself, isn't Hashem asking you to do higher things? Practically, as we are in the Shabbos after the passing of the day of the Shabbos after the passing of Rebbe Rasha, every Jew must accept upon themselves to take on good resolutions regarding all matters of serving Hashem. in sync with the instruction of the one who passed away on the 2nd of Nisan, the Rashab, as is known, that before he passed away, he says, I'm going to heaven, and my writings I'm leaving here. And there explained on other times that even though he's not saying two different things, he's saying that you have the Rebbe Rashab himself in this world through his writings. So this is something we have to take upon ourselves, regarding influence on others, and be an example. And this is so amazing. The guy's hearing the words of the Gemara. The poor men of your city, you have to take precedence. I have to take precedence myself. I have to enjoy my tea. It says you have to be an example. You have to act in a way that's you have to act in a way that's the best. Because if you want to influence someone else to be the best, 100%, you have to be more than 100%. Because the other guy who has been influenced by you, he says, it's not for me to reach your heels. And so if you want to influence someone else to be 100%, you have to be more than 100%, because the other person says, I just need to be up to your heels. Especially because the guy who is being influenced by you says, it doesn't make sense, I can be in the same level as you. So we need to add in all matters of spreading Judaism, especially the campaign which is appropriate for the time that we're in now, to learn the laws of Yantiv and be involved in raising funds for people who need help with Yantiv, Ma'aschitim, and all of the other mitzvah campaigns. And maybe Hashem's will that being involved in all of the above-mentioned ideas, above-mentioned things in an appropriate way, we should merit speedily mamish to the trunk big uth Mashiach Tzekenu, and we should merit to celebrate Pesach in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, the way Hashem wants us to, with our young and old, with our sons and daughters, with joy and gladness of heart. L'chaim. A good Shabbos, a freilichen Shabbos. Let's do it. No, we can't have tea.